Hey, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back once again to Stable B, our favorite place. The place that we give some tech tips and tricks, lists of great things and not so great things, and talk about motorcycles and wait very patiently for sometimes a very long time to get back to the track and do what we love. But today we are here in Stable B. What we're gonna talk about today is my top 5 worst sport bike mods. So I did put out a video earlier on my top 5 best sport bike mods, and that'll be linked up here. But today we're gonna talk about what I think are the top 5 worst, the ones that you specifically should not do. Understand this channel is cemented around and centered around track days and club racing and specifically just anything kind of related to putting a motorcycle on a racetrack. So we're gonna talk about sport bikes and we're gonna talk about how these relate to track days and racing and that kind of side of the world. So if you're a stunt rider, drag racer, or just a street junkie, you might be a little bit not in tune or in line with these. But if you're looking to get into racing on the racetrack or doing track days, this is the channel for you. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel and then listen up for these top 5 worst sport bike mods that I personally think are just kind of a detriment to the motorcycle and a detriment to your ability to ride, specifically out on a racetrack. If you have any opposites or any feelings on that, I do ask that you comment down below. If you think I'm completely off, I want to hear your guys' ideas so that I can kind of build my own better opinion. We are on the internet where we all share opinions, so I want to hear yours also. Throw those down below in the comments. While you're down there, throw a like on the video. Let's go ahead and get into our list of the top 5 worst sport bike mods. Okay, the hardest part about today and doing these top 5 worst sport bike mods is the fact that I can't really show them to you on anything that I own because, well, I'm not gonna do my top 5 worst mods to my own bikes. So we'll throw some pictures in there hopefully, and I'll point out how my bikes don't have these mods on them and give you some alternatives. So the first one that we're gonna talk about, I just actually talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago, talked about how you shouldn't lower your motorcycle and talked about why. You should check that video out, it'll be linked up there. But I think that that is probably like one of my number 1, maybe number 2 on the list. These also aren't gonna be in any specific order, but lowering your bike, putting a lowering kit on your bike. So there are short people in the world. Some of us have shorter legs and longer torsos. Some of us are just short altogether. Myself, I'm about 5'6", pretty short, sometimes hard to ride a motorcycle. And I used to want to lower all these bikes. And then I started looking into how that affects the geometry and affects the handling and can just have negative outlooks on the bike and everything else. And realized that lowering a bike is actually one of the worst things you can do for that bike. There are ways to lower it or effectively lower it to make it easier to ride that will not ruin that. I would suggest that you look into those if you're looking for lowering, if you're a really short guy or you can't handle it. But if you're gonna be doing track days, you're gonna be racing, you're not gonna spend a whole lot of time with your feet down. So it's best if you can just kind of learn how to ride the bike at the height that it comes from factory or relatively similar to that without putting a lower kit on it. It can affect the geometry and it's just not good for the bike. So that would be number 1, don't lower your bike. All right, number 2, worst sport bike mod. Once again, not in any specific order, but if you come to the back of this bike, you can see here that your chain is stretched out and the swing arm is a certain length and the bike is a certain length and the distance from the front of the bike to the back of the bike is how it was intended to be from factory, plus or minus probably, we'll call it 2 inches of adjustment for chain adjustment. When designers design these motorcycles, they put a lot of thought and a lot of effort into making sure that they're gonna handle as best as possible. And that includes being able to put the power to the ground effectively. Stretching your bike, in my opinion, is one of the worst things you can do to a sport bike. Absolutely. If you are just gonna take that bike to the track on the weekend to drag race, like you're taking it to a drag strip, then I get it, go for it, stretch your bike. But if you're at all ever gonna do a track day or you're trying to canyon carve or get better around the street, I don't care if you think it looks better. I don't care if it's a Busa. I don't care. If you're stretching your bike out, you're gonna have a detriment to your handling overall. What it normally does for you is allow the bike to put more power down without wheeling because the bike itself is longer, which is true, but you give up your cornering ability, your turning radius, and just the overall characteristics and the handling of the bike are gonna be completely different, opposite, and not what they were designed to be. So these super sport bikes are not built for drag racing. They really aren't. They are built to get off the line quickly, especially our new ones. We got wheelie control and traction control and launch control, all these different things that'll help you get off the line very quickly. If you're a skilled rider, you can actually still do that with all the controls turned off. There's a video I watched of Josh Herrin kick the butt of some very, very fast cars on a Ducati V4R, and he had all his electronics off at the time, and the bike was not stretched, and he was still able to win that drag race. So I don't think it is necessary to stretch your bike to drag race better, unless you're putting like 400 horsepower into a 600 or something like that. You got nitrous, you got a turbo. But once again, that's kind of down the drag bike build. If you have a stock sport bike, Don't stretch it. It's not worth it, and it is gonna be not good out on the track. Just 100%. I'm not about it. Don't stretch the bikes. And honestly, I don't think it looks good. Once again, if you don't agree with my opinion, let me know down in the comments, but I think bike stretching is not worth it. Bikes are set up how they're set up for a reason. They're engineered that way. Let's keep them that way. They're gonna handle a lot better, and they're still definitely rideable, and stretching the bike doesn't make it faster. It just means that it makes it a little easier for you to be fast. If you're looking for getting faster, look inside rather than at the bike. Okay, third thing up on our list. This one, you know, when I was coming up with this list of 5 different things, I was trying to think of 5 things that I actually like care about, not just 5 things that I could put out to you guys that you'd be like, oh yeah, cool, another great list of 5 things, whatever. And I didn't have any buy-in in. So this one's a little just purely kind of personal basis, but I got some reasons behind it. And the third thing on the list that I think makes the top 5 list of worst sport bike mods is gonna be Underglow, or just lights inside the bike. My reasoning for that is, 1, I really think that those kind of colorful, bright lights and all that stuff is some stuff of the 90s. 2, if you're on a sport bike out on the track, you're gonna tape up all your lights anyway, so you're not gonna use this Underglow. And if it's not wired well and everything else, it could actually just be a massive issue when you get out there having Underglow on accident or something like that. You don't want that. So when it comes to racing and track days and all of that, no one puts Underglow on a race bike. So it's not worth it to put it on your street bike if you're ever gonna end up doing a track day or go racing. If you're not down that road, you're watching this video still, and you're like, well, Underglow looks cool, and you ride on the street, the best thing I could come up with for why you shouldn't do it even on a street bike that's purely street is that if you ever find yourself running from something, it's a lot easier to see you if you have all these bright, colorful lights. Or not running from something, but just trying to avoid something. Once again, very easy to see. So that would be my reason for not doing it on the street. At the same time, I don't condone those things. I think everyone should get to the racetrack, should go racing, do some track days, and should follow the speed limits and follow the laws out on the road. That's why we have racetracks, that's why we have track days. So you can do all those things in a legal manner that's actually way more fun and way more safe. But out there, can't have Underglow, so go ahead and pull the Underglow off the bike. Actually, both of these bikes right here, the 09 and the 08 Gixxer 750 that we have, both had Underglow on them when I got them. It was one of the first things I took off. And if you want like another reason for it, weight reduction, I guess. You know, it's about half a pound, so it'll make your bike faster because it's lighter weight. There you go, there's my reason. Don't put an Underglow on the bike, not worth it. No one needs the bright fancy colors. It's a lot cooler to just look fast than it is to look colorful and neon. So no Underglow, that was number 3. Okay, number 4 on the list, the top 5 worst sport bike mods. We're gonna kind of key this into just a generalized term of cheap exhaust. In my top 5 best sport bike mods, you'll notice I put exhaust in there. I am a big believer in your bike should sound nice. You should enjoy the sound of it. If you enjoy the sound of the bike, you're gonna enjoy riding the bike, you're gonna wanna ride it more. If you go down the route of cheap exhaust, I don't just mean cheap in price, I'm all about going and finding the cheapest things, the best deals, but you also want good quality. So you gotta kind of pair that, you know, that's the hardest line to run in the world and in any sport, any hobby, anything is to find the cheapest in price while still having decent quality. And you can kind of cut some corners, and I understand that, but when I was searching for exhaust for this Aprilia, I wanted something that was nice and loud and really kind of made that statement of this is a V4, this is an Aprilia. They're known for being loud. I love the sound. I love just the raw V4 sound that an Aprilia can put out with proper exhaust. What I was looking at was the SC Project CRT, and it was like, I think $1,200 for that thing. It was expensive. So what I found was RaceFit, and I actually couldn't find any like real info on how it sounded or anything like that for this bike specifically. So I could find some for some older stuff, but for the 2019 1100, couldn't find it. So I ended up putting a video out on that also. I do recommend you check that out if you're interested in this bike and this exhaust, but it was still not cheap. I don't think you have to go titanium. I don't think you have to spend a ton of money and get something crazy name brand, but I do think that if you're putting a cheap Amazon $50 pipe kit on there, all you're doing is cutting your stock muffler off and putting on this slip-on that's not a muffler at all, the sound that you're gonna get out is gonna be not good. These bikes are loud. A lot of people already find them annoying. If we can produce a loud sound, which is good, I'm all about, you know, loud pipes save lives, hashtag Harley Davidson till I die. Is that how it goes? I don't know, brother. But all about loud pipes, all about it. If you're going to a track where there is a noise limit, kind of have to cut back on that a little bit. Some of the pipes offer inserts. One of my favorites is M4. I think they're really good. But if you cheap out, you get some eBay kit or some cheap just slip-on pipe that's not even a muffler or anything at all on Amazon, you're gonna get a very nasty raw sound. And it's, even for a guy that loves sport bikes, I can tell when I hear one of those. It's just not good. And those are almost definitely gonna ping any sort of sound meter at any track day or any race event. No one's gonna like it. So being loud while sounding good, I think is the goal. If you're buying cheap exhaust just to get rid of your muffler, wait a little bit, save up some money, do some research, find something that's still in your budget, but will actually produce a good sound. Watch some YouTube videos on it and pick something that is gonna refine the sound. It can make it louder. Like I said, I'm all about that, but let's refine it and still produce a good, nice sound. Stay away from cheap exhaust. That is number 4. All right, coming up to the end of the list, number 5 on our list of top 5 worst sport bike mods. I was actually just looking. I've got a frame slider on this bike and I've got my peg here. I was looking through some rules for PRE, Precision Riding Experience, I think. They're a track day organization down here in the Southeast. Pretty good. Haven't ridden with them yet, but I've heard really good stuff from some buddies that have and just on the internet. But I was trying to figure out if things were specifically not allowed, because one of the things that I just don't think quite belong, I understand the need for them, but I don't think they belong, are the crash cages or the stump bike cages that people will put on their bikes. And when I was looking at the rules for PRE, they said that those are absolutely allowed, provided they don't stick out further than the peg. And so I was kind of curious, because you'll see I have my frame slider here. I do believe in frame sliders, engine protectors, all of the protection for the bike is very important. I just think the giant crash cage is a little too much. I'll get into that a little bit more in detail for a bit, but I actually noticed that technically my frame slider does stick out past the peg just a little bit, not a lot. No one's ever commented on that, so I'm gonna say it's perfectly okay. But I look over here at my Aprilia and it is further in. So kind of interesting. Never thought about that before. Might need to get some a little lower profile. I don't know, maybe I'll ask some questions about it, but crash cages are okay per their rules as long as they don't stick out past the peg. So if my frame slider here is already sticking out past the peg a little bit, a crash cage or a stunt cage, whatever you, what do you call it? Let me know down in the comments, I don't know the official name, is definitely gonna stick out past. So I did a little bit of research on this one because it was hard for me to say that this hit my list of top 5 worst sport bike mods. When I first thought about it, I was like, no way, it provides protection for the bike. Then I kind of started thinking about it actually, and the amount of protection it will actually provide for the bike, I feel if you are laying a bike down that often, you might not actually, you're probably making some pretty hefty mistakes and you shouldn't be doing that. You should kind of take a refinement to your riding and get a little bit tuned in, right? Narrowed down. If you are a stunt rider or you're out on the street and that is something you want just in case, then great. But if you get in a wreck bad enough to cause that much damage to your engine and your frame up here, the rest of the bike is probably gonna be gone, just being honest with you. So if you're like looking, when I think about a wreck out on the street, I think about what insurance is gonna call totaled. And I think that if you got to the point where you need a crash cage to keep the bike safe, the rest of the bike is gonna be mangled enough that it's gonna be considered totaled. Once again, if you're a stunt rider, that's what you do in life, great, good for you. You're probably not watching this video anyway, but if you are, keep your crash cage. I understand it, you're putting that bike down, 20 times an hour or whatever it might be. You're out in the parking lot doing slow speed stuff and it's gonna protect those scrapes and bruises and all of that. I got it, go for it. When you get out to the racetrack, I recommend just taking it off. If you're looking at doing track days, don't have it out there. 1, certain track day organizations aren't gonna allow it. 2, it is gonna give you a weird kind of dynamic to ground clearance. I could argue that it'll change the weight ratio and setup on the bike, make the front end a little heavier. I don't think they weigh enough to really make that difference, but you could argue that. But as you lean your bike over, you get closer to the ground. So if your ground's here, your bike's here, and then you get a crash cage that is here, you're losing 4 or 5 inches of ground clearance when you're leaned over. And usually your feet are on the pegs, so your toes are gonna scrape first if you're scraping your pegs. And so you'll notice that. If you're scraping an entire crash cage, it's gonna be weird. I have no idea what that would feel like, if it would scrape nicely or if it would end up just jolting the bike and running it off the ground, or yeah, off the ground, off the track. And I think that is kind of why PRE said it's okay as long as it doesn't stick out past the pegs, which most of them do. So they basically just don't allow them. But I'm gonna say that's number 5 of my top 5 worst sport bike mods would be putting a crash cage on the bike if you're looking at racing or track day riding. And if you go out to a track day or you go out to a club race weekend or Moto America or whatever, you're not gonna see these things on there. So that's kind of a lot of what bases that. Because once again, with the crash cage, I was just like, I don't know, I'm all about protection. Because I'm all about, like, you're gonna wreck eventually. You want as much protection on the bike as possible to make that a little bit cheaper when you come back out. And also, like your engine protection protects from oil and fluids leaking on the track. All that's very important so that other people can keep up their track days and keep going. But I don't think the crash cage is the best of both worlds. I think it's a little bit too far on the unsafe, unknown territory. And so let's just keep them off the bike, keep it nice and easy that way. Once again, if you're stunt riding or you're on the street only and that's what you want to do, go for it. Let me know down in the comments that it saved your bike from XYZ one time. I do want to hear about it because I'm kind of curious about how much they actually help, or if it's just something that people sell and make money for no reason. So, number 5. Once again, that was our list of top 5 worst sport bike mods. Once again, all my opinion. And once again, this channel is centered around track days, club racing, and just putting motorcycles on racetracks. So if you're not doing any of those things and you don't agree with the list, that's perfectly fine. You go do you, I'm all about it. Do also understand, you know, respect the ride. If you're just purely building a bike for what you like to look at, go for it. But if you're looking for peak performance and safety and different things like that while going to a track day or doing some racing, that's what we're here to inform you about. So that's where that list of our top 5 came from. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Once again, please subscribe to the channel, throw a like on the video, and if you have any questions about any of those things, or like I said, if you think I'm completely off and you got a different opinion or you've heard different data or anything like that, let me know down in the comments. I want to hear about it. I'm all about learning. I like the community of feedback both ways and all about it. So appreciate it. Appreciate you guys for watching the videos. Stick around. We'll see you guys in the next video.